I sensed the first fracture in my composure the instant my father lightly struck his champagne flute and declared he had news to share. The chandeliers glimmered across the golden bow tied around a single key. My key. Before I could fully absorb the sparkling act of disloyalty, he placed it firmly into my brother's hand. A wedding gift for the groom-to-be. He announced that the house now belonged to him. My house. The one I had rebuilt from the ground up. The one that had swallowed $30,000 and 3 years of my life. The room erupted in polite applause. My pulse thundered louder. My mother enveloped my brother's fiancée in an embrace as though she were her own daughter. My brother offered me a thin, empty smile before silently forming the words, "You'll manage." I slipped away before a single tear could expose me. I had always believed our family ran on an invisible code of allegiance. We were never soft, but we were supposed to be unbreakable. That was the illusion. When my brother drowned in debt 2 years earlier, I opened my door and gave him the entire guest wing. When my parents asked to temporarily transfer the title into their names for some tax maneuver, I signed without hesitation. When the renovation bills climbed higher and higher, I wrote every check myself. Trust used to feel noble. Now it felt like naivete wearing a crown. The warnings had been there all along. My mother looking away whenever I spoke about long-term plans for the place. My father suddenly fretting about a single woman living alone in such a big house. My brother casually rifling through drawers in my study when he thought I wasn't watching. But the messages that arrived after the engagement dinner etched the reality into my marrow. "Brother, you need to vacate the property at once. You have 48 hours. Then a second one, and do not remove anything that is built in. Built-in belongs to the house." As if the walls themselves were his skeleton and I was merely a transplant being rejected. I read the text until the screen went black. Numbness never arrived, only an icy, razor-sharp clarity settled in its place. They expected meek surrender. I could be quiet, just not the quiet they had scripted. Tears are expensive. Planning is priceless. So while my parents slept the sleep of the victorious, convinced they had neatly boxed me into my corner, I opened the thick digital folder labeled Renovation. All proof. Permits, invoices, contracts, dated photographs of every stage. I didn't need to burn the house down. I only needed to return it to the precise condition in which they had legally received it years ago. Every upgrade I financed, every wall I rebuilt, every fixture I chose, every appliance I installed was personal property, and I was about to repossess every cent. At first light, I called a specialized restoration and removal crew. I paid double for absolute silence, total discretion, and breakneck speed. "Strip it back to the exact original footprint," I instructed. "Every screw, every light, every plank I paid for, take it out cleanly." They didn't pry. By midday, the handcrafted kitchen cabinetry was carefully unmounted. By 2 o'clock, the designer pendants and recessed lighting were packed into padded crates. By 4, the wide plank oak floors I had laid myself were being lifted like layers of scar tissue. Beneath it all, the house looked raw, wounded, and precisely as unattractive as the day they had handed me the keys. I kept every door bolted, every blind lowered. To any neighbor glancing over, it simply looked like someone moving out. They weren't entirely mistaken. When I walked out that evening, the air was thick with sawdust and the faint, metallic scent of retribution. What stood behind me was still structurally sound, yet aesthetically ruined. Naked bulbs dangling from wires, warped subfloor screaming underfoot. The ancient pressed-wood cabinets from a decade earlier peeling like sunburned skin. I placed the key on the scarred countertop beside a short note. "Return to original condition as requested." They arrived the following morning. My mother's shriek came first, high, animal, disbelieving. My father's bellow followed, deep and shaking the empty rooms. My brother stood in the doorway, mouth half open, as if the protagonist of his own story had just discovered the final plot twist was written by someone else. "What have you done?" he finally managed. "I left," I answered calmly, "exactly as you demanded. You destroyed everything." "No," I said, "I reclaimed what was mine. Every item I purchased is now in a climate-controlled unit registered solely in my name. The original bones of the house are untouched. That distinction will matter enormously in court." My father's color drained to ash. He understood instantly, receipts time-stamped, permits bearing my signature, contractors ready to testify. I never raised my voice, there was no need. "You gave him a house," I continued, voice low and even. "You did not give him my money, my time, or my improvements." My brother took one aggressive step forward, hand half raised, then froze. It wasn't self-control that stopped him. It was the sudden realization in his eyes that the quiet sister he'd always dismissed was holding every document, every photograph, every legal ace. One last detail, I added almost gently. I've already retained counsel. Forcibly evicting a resident without proper notice carries mandatory penalties in this state. They're substantial. You'll be hearing from someone shortly. His fiancée, standing pale behind him, whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "We should have let her keep the damn house." The smartest thing she'd ever said in my presence. I stepped past the three of them, brushing plaster dust from my sleeves while the hollow rooms echoed with their stunned silence. Most people imagine vengeance as roaring flames. Mine was the soft click of latches closing on crates that now belonged exclusively to me. They wanted me gone with nothing but humiliation to my name. Instead, they inherited a hollowed-out shell worth barely half its former value and a lawsuit that carried only their names on the defendant line. I rolled the windows down as I drove away, letting the morning air flood the car, clean, cold, and finally entirely my own. Families wound with noise and drama. Justice, when it comes, often arrives on silent feet.